EasySnow is your go-to tool for adding highly realistic snow to any level. If you've used Niagara before, you'll know it can be a little overwhelming and tricky to art direct. I created EasySnow with artists like you in mind, making it a breeze to art direct heavy snowfall, light flurries, or blizzards in seconds. It leverages Niagara particles and an elegant material function to add snow to your entire world, conveniently controlled through a single blueprint. You can place pockets of snow wherever you like in your level and art direct each one independently. I spent time shooting and studying real-world reference of snowfall in order to bring you this tool. Each snowflake is a 3D model based on real-world snow clumps, which get lit, shaded, and rendered in a realistic manner. For you early birds, EasySnow is 30% off for the next week only. You can download it on the Epic Marketplace, link down below. So let's get right to it. Let me show you why it should be a part of your toolbox, how to use it, and what you can do with it. So there are lots of existing plugins out there that have weather systems, but I found most of them to be a little bit lackluster when it comes to both how they look and the ability to control them. The reason I went with a fully 3D model approach for the snowflakes instead of using sprites, which do get better performance, is because 3D models will actually get shaded properly. They cast the light and highlight and self-shadow, but also because of motion blur. Here's a slow motion example. Each snowflake is rotating, oscillating, twisting through the air like real snowflakes do. And when motion blurred, you get some more interesting texture when it gets rendered. No two snowflakes look the same in the shot. Yes, I absolutely am pixel peeping here, but this is the kind of thing that gives your render that last little 5% of realism it needs to go from good to great. So with that said, let's jump into Unreal to see how it is used. You'll find a demo level provided in the EasySnow folder, and this should give you a really good idea of how everything works. So to get started with EasySnow in your project, all you need to do is to find the blueprint folder and drag and drop the EasySnow blueprint right here, like so. You'll get started right away with having snow falling in your scene. So now that we have EasySnow in the level, I'm going to guide you through the settings that you have access to. So EasySnow has a bunch of presets that you can use as a starting point. You got light snow, heavy snow. One thing to be aware of is when you have a preset enabled, it locks many settings in the blueprint right here. Any setting that has a dash suffix here means that it is locked when a preset is enabled. The other settings that don't have a suffix can be adjusted even when you're using a preset. So here's what I recommend you to do. Use a preset as a starting point, and if you want to make additional changes to it, you can then remove the preset by ticking the little arrow here, which preserves the values set by the preset. From there, you can make the changes you want. You can also make your own personal presets by duplicating one of the preset files in the content browser here and adding your own values. Just be aware, if your spawn radius and height values are set too small or too high, preset results might look a little bit odd. So if things are looking a little bit weird, start off with default values in your scene and work your way from there to troubleshoot. Next, we have the custom speed slider right here, which you can use to adjust the global speed. And this here is kind of a clear example. So this blueprint has a custom speed of 2, while the other one that's slower has a custom speed of 0.2. This can help you get results for things that aren't necessarily snow, things like ash or dust, so on and so forth. Next, we have the spawn radius and spawn radius height. And I'm going to adjust these real quick, and I set this to like 200 by 200. And as the name implies, it's going to adjust what the radius of the spawned particles is going to be. This is going to be really important for you to adjust accordingly when you're using the camera-centric checkbox here. The camera-centric checkbox means that a particle emitter will always follow the camera no matter where in the world you are. This can be a very helpful starting point if you're making a game or something, or if your camera in your shot is traveling a very large distance over time. Because you probably don't want to be placing pockets of snow everywhere in a level or using huge radiuses with a colossal amount of particles. Personally, I prefer to place the pockets of snow where I want in a level, but sometimes setting it to camera centric is needed for a given shot. It's great to kind of combine the two. Next, we have the spawn rate right here. And like the name implies, this controls how many particles you want. Do you want 100 snow particles? Or do you want 10,000? So just kind of go easy on the amount. You can probably murder your computer if you try hard enough. Next is the snow lifetime, and that is the total life duration of each snowflake. In general, I recommend keeping that value to as low a value as you can get away with, because higher values can be a little bit more performance intensive and often very unnecessary. Next, we have the air resistance, min and max. As you'll see here, on the left, we have no wind resistance, and on the right, we've got a value of 0.2. This is really an art direction feature. It gives you more control over the look. Sometimes in real life, snow does fall in a straight line like that, and other times it doesn't. So I recommend avoiding values that are really high. In general, like it says here, values between 0 and 0.3 are what I recommend. You can also use this combined with the chaos slider for additional control. Next, we have the near particle size min and max. Like the name implies, this is going to control the minimum size and the maximum size of your particle system. So if I can set this to like 4 and 10, something to be aware of, this will only affect the size of the actual snow geometry. That leads me to my next point. We've got distant particle size. And what do I mean by that? When the particles are far enough away from the camera, they will revert to sprites, meaning they will no longer be actual 3D models. And so if I move the camera back here, you'll see the difference here. That has to do with the LOD setting, which we're going to look into again really soon. So if you want to increase the size of the distant sprites, you have control over that right here at a distant particle size. So if I set it to 10, you'll see they've gotten bigger. I hope that makes sense. You can also adjust the distant particle alpha. If you notice that in the very far distance, your snow is not that visible, you can increase the slider here, and that should make them a little bit more visible in distance. Like I mentioned earlier, I went with a full 3D model approach for the snowflakes. That's where the LOD control comes in. You can adjust the range at which each LOD changes, and the LOD toggle here gives you a color-coded visual indication of which one is which. Pink is high detail, green is mid detail, and blue is low detail sprites. Next up we have wind, and wind is a fun one, and this is where you can really fine tune the control of your particle system. Everything here is pretty well identified and pretty straightforward, but turbulence here works together with the wind strength, and this allows you to get a more wispy feel. It breaks up the linear falling pattern of the snow, and by adjusting its frequency, you can get some really interesting visuals, which are perfect for cinematics. Now, we do also have collision that you can turn on as well. This uses mesh distance fields, so if your mesh does not have distance fields, you're not going to get any collision. If you want snow to accumulate even more, then that's where the snow lifetime comes in handy, and we can increase this, let's say, to 20, and the snow will start building up over 20 seconds. If you'll see already we're starting to get quite a bit of an accumulation here on the ground. Yeah, just be careful. If you need to, you can also adjust the material of the snowflakes right here. So if you need to change the color here, you want your snowflake to be a bright red or something, you can configure the look of the material of the individual snowflakes by going to the snowflake material adjustments right here. EasySnow also has a drift option here that you can toggle to add a stormy, windy, foggy effect for additional art direction purposes. There isn't a set it and forget it mode for this. You're absolutely going to need to tweak the settings to get the result to work well in your specific environment with your specific lighting. But I've made this as easy to adjust as possible. I do need to take a moment to talk about translucency. If you have any experience with materials in Unreal, you might be familiar with the translucency lighting modes. And unfortunately, I cannot expose translucency settings through the blueprint. So depending on your level and your needs, you may have to adjust this in the drift material. By default, I have it set to volumetric non-directional, as that seems to work pretty well in a variety of situations. But you can get wildly different results based on this setting here. Things like particles being lit by local lights at a distance or getting a more volume-like effect. This is all dependent on that setting there. Like I said, I can't expose that to the blueprint for ease of use, so I wanted to make you aware of it. There is no one-size-fits-all setting, unfortunately. Next, we have the material function I was talking about. The World Snow material function is a crazy easy way to add snow to all of your models by plugging it into your relevant master material. All you need to do is this. Open up your master material, and in this case, I've got the Megascans master material that a lot of you are probably using. You can add the following material function by drag and dropping it into the master material here. And you might be a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of pins here, but don't worry. Plug it in like this. you'll see I have MA support, which is short for material attributes. And this is the easiest way to do it. But if your master material does not have a material attributes approach, you can simply plug in the relevant nodes into the base color, roughness, normal, displacement, etc. From there, plug the output pins into your material, and you're done. And once it's done, I recommend creating a material instance of this material because that makes it way easier to art direct your materials later because everything will be condensed into this and clearly explained. From there, it's all controlled through the EasySnow blueprint itself. You just need to go to World Material Settings right here and tick this checkbox. By default, this will be turned off because I realize that on larger projects, you might not want to have snow everywhere all the time. So this way, you have to manually turn on the snow if you want to use it. Be aware, this is not a toggle. Once you set it, it is set. If you misclicked and realize you didn't actually want to set it, don't worry, just reopen your level and it will revert to default. I'm working on a better solution for this. So hopefully in a future update, I'll be able to make this a toggle instead, because that would be a lot easier to work with. From there, you can globally control how much snow you have, the fall off, the sharpness, the fading, the displacement, so on and so forth. You do have the option to override the blueprint settings on a per material basis if you want more granular control over the look of the snow on a specific model. This can be really useful. If, say, the snow looks good on one specific model, but not so good on another, here is how you override that global blueprint setting. Go into the material instance of your specific model, and here you'll see a World Snow group. Tick the Override Blueprint Setting checkbox, and that will reveal the same settings you see in the blueprint, but your changes will only affect that specific material instance. Like I said, that is going to be really handy for adjusting displacement because displacement might not look good on every single model. Which leads me to my next point. This feature also supports nanite tessellation and displacement. If you want this to work in your project, you need to do the following. In your Epic Launcher, right-click on your project, click on Show in Folder, and go to the config folder here and open up the default engine.ini file. You need to add the following two console variables here in order for displacement to work. Save that file and you'll be ready to go. As of Unreal Engine 5.4, you will also need to enable tessellation in your master material for displacement to work, and make sure that displacement is plugged in correctly in your material. If your console variables have been set correctly, you should see the displacement working in the provided demo level. You'll notice something here if I add some wind to my snow particles. It has an effect on the world snow material. As I increase the wind strength, you'll see that the snow builds up on one side of the model here. And this is exactly how I was able to achieve a more directional snow buildup on the old Stave Church shot right here. Using wind strength and direction affects the world snow material. Bear in mind, this can only be set once by one EasySnow blueprint. If you have a bunch of EasySnow blueprints in your level and all of them are set to different strengths and directions, you might get unexpected results because the material doesn't really know which one to listen to. So just be aware. I recommend having one global wind direction and strength across all of your EasySnow blueprints if you want to use this effect. This effect, as always, can be overridden in the EasySnow blueprint right here, or in the material instance as well, if you don't want that wind buildup effect at all and or need multiple wind directions. Now, sometimes with this kind of procedural snow material, you might run into this issue right here. Maybe you have snow somewhere on a model where you don't want it to be and you want to hide it. That is where masking comes in handy, and I provided two ways for you to fix this. The first way has a few caveats, but it is by far the easiest way. And that is by drag and dropping this provided mask blueprint into your level and placing it wherever you want to mask away the world snow material. This also has the ability to adjust the blending properties to make the edge of the mask softer. You can break it up and adjust the breakup tiling. But there's a couple of important things to be aware of here. First off, you can only have one of these in your level at a time, unfortunately. I'm currently working on finding a better solution for this that will allow you to have more than just one, but that is the limitation I am currently running into, so it's unfortunate, but it is still nice to have. Secondly, you can't rotate the box projection here. You'll see if I rotate it, the actor rotates, but the masking doesn't. That's just how box masks work, so just be aware. It's not broken, you're not doing anything wrong. Now, the second way to mask away the snow is with vertex painting. First, in the material instance of your model, assuming you've created one, be sure to have Use Vertex Paint checked. If you don't see this, you need to have the Custom Snow Masking checked as well. Next, we need to vertex paint where we want to mask away the snow. To do so, you need to make sure you have the Modeling Tools plugin enabled by going here, search for Modeling, and enable the following 2 plugins. Once you restart Unreal, select the object you want to vertex paint on. Then you can navigate to the Modeling Tools tab by going right up here. Then go to the Attributes tab and select Paint Vertex Colors. This can be a little bit heavy sometimes depending on how dense in vertices your mesh is. By default, unless otherwise specified on import, all meshes usually have all vertex colors set to white across all channels, which is fine. All you need to do in order to mask away the snow you don't want is the following. Uncheck all channels except for the blue, and your model should be blue here. If you're not seeing blue, just be sure the material mode is set to lit vertex color. Set your paint color to black and paint away the blue parts. Whatever is blue is where there will be snow. What is black will mask away the snow. When you hit accept, you should see that your model now no longer has snow wherever you masked it. There is one last little feature I want to showcase, and that is glimmering. I added this feature as a way to get some nice glimmering effects on the surface of the snow when the sun hits it, as you get in real life. This can be set in the EasySnow blueprint, or, as always, overridden in the material instance. The glimmering will only show up when you use a directional light, and will only affect the mesh normals that are facing the directional light. Unfortunately, there is no way to mask effects by whether or not they are shadowed, so you'll see here in this example, the snow is clearly shadowed and should not be receiving any light, and it doesn't, but the glimmering still shows up. That's just a limitation we have in Unreal at the moment, but I still wanted to make this effect available to you. So when it comes to rendering, I want to briefly cover some good practices when rendering with the Movie Render Queue. For best results, add the anti-aliasing tab in the Movie Render Queue, set AA method to none, and I recommend a minimum of 16 temporal samples. If you don't have enough, you may run into this kind of look. You'll see a repeating pattern because you just don't have enough samples. Bumping it up higher to 32 or 64 samples will give you a much smoother effect on the snow. Temporal samples are all about motion blur quality. And when it comes to snow, motion blur is everything. Oh, one last thing. In the anti-aliasing tab, make sure you have enough warm-up frames, because otherwise what's going to happen is the first, 50 or 100 frames of your shot might not have that much snow in them. So you need to have enough warm-up frames to get the snow particles to settle down into your shot before it actually starts rendering the frame. So just use this. Now, something I want to be completely transparent about is this kind of thing you might see when you're rendering. Depending on your shot, you might notice this kind of flickering or artifacts showing up, dark spots, or even flakes disappearing and reappearing. This has to do with depth of field. When you push depth of field in Unreal to its absolute limits, like I am in this shot, that kind of thing happens. You've probably noticed this yourself when you're trying to get a very shallow depth of field look or moving your camera very close to objects. This is not an issue with EasySnow. This is a fundamental limitation in the depth buffers of real-time engines. This will happen in Unreal, Unity, Godot, whatever. There's only 2 ways to avoid this. And the first way is not really a fix, but rather hiding it and making it less obvious by using a less pronounced depth of field, a higher aperture value, or moving the close subject a little bit further away from the camera. The second solution is to use the path tracer and enabling the reference depth of field checkbox in your post-process volume, because that way the depth of field becomes fully ray traced and physically accurate. I have, however, used every trick in the book to help mitigate this issue as much as possible. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you have any suggestions for EasySnow, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. There's a lot of things I want to fix and improve here, so keep an eye out for free updates in the future. I'll be sure to post news and updates about all of my tools, EasyFog, EasyMapper, and EasySnow, on both Twitter and Instagram. Again, EasySnow is 30% off for the next week only, so be sure to get it while it's cheap. And as always, folks, happy rendering.